Hey everybody, my name is Jenny and welcome to Veritable Volatility. Today, I'm really excited because I'm talking about a bespoke perfume I made via a service called Lovesick Witchery. I think she's a one-woman business, which is fucking boss. So this perfume is called, all caps, Arsenic with an exclamation point. Oftentimes I fantasize about creating my own beauty brand. I have like ideas for eyeshadow palettes, a concealer line of like I'll have different names for the shades of concealers that are like really creative. If you know me, you know I like love names. Like names are very important to me. I feel like I say that in like every video. But yeah, this perfume concept, this amalgam of notes is what I call arsenic. And my idea for the bottle is maybe I'll do like a little concept sketch or something. It's gonna look like that, like a bottle of poison, you know, skull and crossbones and everything. Y'all know Arsenic Mayhem already. You know what's up. Yeah, I'm playing Arsenic Mayhem music right now because I feel like it's appropriate for this video. Anyway though, if you're familiar with my videos, you might know what I mean when I say my realgar stars reading system. That's basically an assessment of how Arsenic Mayhem a given perfume is. For example, so far, my highest scoring scent on that scale is called Velvet by the perfume house Commodity. Let me show it to you. This is good. Yeah. Velvet being my highest, it's got a 4.9 realgar stars out of 5. 5 is the max. How I score perfumes is via the categories gender, notes, name, bottle, and lore. And this scored like perfect across all of those except for the lore because it was a little bit sexualized in my opinion. I just didn't interpret it as something quite thematic to my branding, I suppose you could say. And this is theoretically, in theory, in purpose, in essence, supposed to be a perfect 5 perfume, what that would smell like to me. And I picked the notes very purposefully to reflect Arsenic's personality. That's a whole note section of realgar stars anyways. How much do the notes represent her? The notes I picked I feel are ironically quite similar to Velvet. Velvet has almond, rose, some sort of smoky musk in the base, also a little bit of coconut water and various woods. I forget exactly what it has, but it's in that family, if you will. And this one has the following notes. You ready? Red apple, clove bud, almond, rice milk, coffee CO2, creme brulee, datura, not the drug, the flower, which the drug comes from, black rose or like dried rose, myrrh, frankincense, gilded amber, and smoked oud. If you don't know what coffee CO2 is supposed to smell like, imagine like nitro, like canned black coffee. It smells a lot like that. Very bitter and very like aromatic, acidic, not aromatic. Like no milk in it whatsoever, no sugar, just like straight up coffee. First thing I smell in this is the coffee CO2, like I was just describing. But I get that very strongly in the top notes of this. I guess I'll apply it to my wrists. I applied it earlier in my elbows. So this is sort of like what I'll refer to as the dry down, but that like, this is an oil, by the way, like it's in a base of sweet almond oil. So yeah, what I get very much on the top is this really bitter nitro sort of coffee smell. And also the almond, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a bitter almond, but perhaps sort of the bitterness may come from that as well, on top of the coffee. And what blends really nice with that is that smoky oud smell. I smell the oud like all the way through this composition, which is nice. And then I think I also smell the datura. I've never smelled a datura flower before this, but apparently it's supposed to smell very sweet, like a honeysuckle type of flower. And I definitely get something like that. Also what I smell on first impact is that like apple and clove sort of fall type smell. Smell that very strongly as well on the top. And I'm not really a fan of this, but there's sort of like this shower gel artificial type vibe too, I think, which comes from the apple and maybe the flowery datura sweet smell. Not a fan of that, but I understand that it is synthetic ingredients, those two. You couldn't get an essential oil from datura or else you'd inhale it and then immediately collapse out of the poison. Not the hugest fan of that synthetic ingredient, the way it smells, but you know, I understand. Yeah, that clove and apple is very fall-like. Something with that in tandem with maybe the smokiness of like the oud and also that frankincense and myrrh smell, that incensey sort of vibe, reminds me of like an abandoned building, something like Halloween. So it reminds me of fall overall, this smell. Just a little bit. And then I wrote down there's this almost like peppery or salty smell, which may come from the oud. Certain oud smells can be quite, not, I don't want to say spicy, but like peppery, or like, I don't know how to describe it, but I think that's where that comes from. And then as far as the rose goes, it's hard for me to pull out distinctly that there's rose in here because I feel like it's really well blended into the other notes in this. So like, it's a black rose or a dried rose as it was described. So I think that sort of like lifeless sort of air is blended in with like the smokiness from the other things I was describing. And also the floral facets of that rose is sort of blended with the datura, so I'm not sure if I like, I can't be sure if I smell it or not, but I believe it's in there. I don't think this is that lactonic. I don't know, milk sometimes for me is really difficult to assess because it's a fantasy note. You can't get an essential oil from milk. It has to be created synthetically. And also the smell of milk is often, perfumers create milk accords. They include like a cooling effect, which isn't really your sense of smell, it's your sense of like feeling, right? But they, you know, like mimic sort of the cooling feeling of milk when you drink it, when they make milk accords. So I don't know, different milk accords are very difficult for me to assess for that reason. But in the dry down, I get very much of that creme brulee smell, like that vanilla, just sweetness. Like this, I feel like the sweetness from the apple becomes the sweetness in like this baker cakey vanilla. The oud is also much stronger. It pulls itself out of that coffee CO2 bitter situation and makes itself a little bit more prominent, as well as the frankincense and myrrh. And then like, again, maybe the almond. I'm not sure if I can pull that up because it's just so subtle and blends in with facets from the other notes. Okay, I lied. Here's what I think of sort of the milk situation that's going on. In the dry down, I think it does smell lactonic. I feel like that sort of gourmandness from the milk is blending in with the creme brulee to hide themselves a little bit. So the both of those things are very difficult to detect, but definitely in the dry down you get a little bit this just general sweet and edible vibe that isn't present very much in the top. And I wanted rice milk because rice often has arsenic in it, because arsenic is sometimes used as a pesticide in rice fields. Again, the notes that I'm describing right now are quite subtle, so it's hard for me to sort of contrive them, but I feel like, I don't know, I just get overall this like incensey, also like Asian household vibe. If you know, you know. I'm half Vietnamese, and whenever I go to my grandma's house, it just smells like incense and rice, because she's always got that rice cooker. And I feel like I'm just confusing that incense smell and the rice smell together. I think the perfumer did a really good job on this, and I thank her from the bottom of my heart for doing this. I'm really happy about it. Now I'm going to go through the notes one by one and sort of explain the symbolism I have behind a lot of them. Alright, first up, apple. Specifically red apple, of course, since arsenic's the red girl. My head's very jumbled today, I'm sincerely sorry. But I feel like it's necessary for me to explain who exactly arsenic is in this video. I don't do it in all my videos, but I feel like now, if anything, I should do it, you know. Okay, so arsenic is this character I made in like 6th grade. And I didn't know this at the time, but it was sort of a defense mechanism, a coping strategy I had for my BPD, which I just got recently diagnosed with. I hate to like talk about mental illness because like nobody cares, but yeah. She's like, I don't know, just a reflection of me, like an alter ego, a way to sort of like cope with my own personality, because in BPD, personality is a huge issue and something that causes a lot of turmoil. And so basically she's just a mirror image of me. I based her off the color red. I used to make characters based off colors. I don't usually typically draw the other ones so much anymore. Arsenic is sort of more, she's more than just a character based on red. She's me. And I've always loved symbolism, and so I've always tied certain symbols to her, as well as my other characters. The name Arsenic Mayhem, I know it's very edgy. Again, I was in 6th grade, give me a break, but it's not like I'm gonna change her name, you know. It's it's gonna stick. Especially if this character is someone you're very close to and basically just your only friend for a long period of your life. Names stick and sort of become part of her very essence altogether. It's like, it's like sort of subconscious, right? Why did I decide to name her Arsenic? Why the word Mayhem as her last name? I used to just call her Miss Mayhem. And I feel like it just ties into the whole symbolism situation. Hopefully what I'm saying makes sense to you. But anyways, apple, right? We all have associations between apples and poison. If you've ever watched Snow White, you'd understand. Apple is also associated with the original sin. Eve, don't eat the apple. Could be knowledge, because it's the tree of knowledge, right? Temptation. I don't know. I usually say that I don't like sort of sexual, like, desire-based symbolism, but with apple I make an exception, because how can you have poison as your gimmick but not include apples as a note? If I like any fruit, it would be apple, I would say. And also it's just like the standard ass fruit, like, who gives a fuck? It's just an apple. Next, I'm gonna explain clove. Cloves symbolize fire, because they are a spice. In the medieval times, when the four humors was the basis of all medical knowledge, they used to say eating spicy foods and spices would make you more choleric, or basically angry and assertive and goal-oriented. Cloves look like nails, which is where their etymology comes from. Clove comes from the word clavus, which means nails. Almonds represent poison as well. They contain cyanide, which I know is an arsenic, but they're also very bitter. Bitterness in smells is quite significant to me as well, because I feel like arsenic is quite a bitter person. Rice milk, again. The service I got this through didn't have a straight up rice note, so I had to go with rice milk. Like I said before, rice sometimes has arsenic in it due to pesticides. And also I'm Asian, so of course, bro. Milk. Motherliness. Comfort. The vibe of the song that's playing right now basically is what milk symbolizes. This is Clover's song. Coffee, CO2. Again, bitterness. And also just like CO2, because again, arsenic. Element, periodic table, molecule, CO2. You dig? Creme brulee. It's in French, and I am half French. Sort of. And also just vanilla. Again, a comforting feeling, a tried and true sort of symbolism right there. Vanilla is, we describe things as vanilla when they're like the standard, like boring sometimes, but also just like comfort zone. Datura. I originally wanted to go with Angel's Trumpet, specifically Angel's Trumpet, which is a type of Datura. Angels are something that are very special to just the sense of divinity and purity, to balance out the darkness, sort of thing. And then again, it's a poisonous flower. Connections to poisons we got here. Black rose. Rose has just always been a symbol for arsenic for like a long ass time. I think like going on 5 years now. I've always used rose as a symbolism for her. They've got thorns. They're red. They're sweet and flower, right? Feminine, but also a little bit dangerous. You know, that wilting rose emoji type vibe, just like dead. Myrrh and frankincense also ties to religion and purity. Incense relates to smoke as well, which smoke is a combination of fire and air elementally, which is my jam. Amber, just like a warm base, not really much to say about that. And then smoked oud. Oud, I feel like this type of oud smells very much like Vietnamese oud, which is that peppery sort of musky smell I was describing. And again, smoke, fire and air. I'm gonna read to you this little description I wrote for this perfume concept. If I ever do make it into a real thing, this would be like the blurb it has. Okay, you ready? My sin is greed, theft, lies, and confusion. My toil has always existed largely on the inside, although I try to speak with verity, to speak from the heart, to purify the disgraced blood that pumps through my veins. I am Geminian, mercurial, and, well, arsenical. I'm arsenic, with an exclamation point. Dead husks of rose, cloves, and red apples. Wet rice and milk with black Vietnamese oud smoke, bitter almond and coffee with sweet datura and vanilla, frankincense and myrrh. I think this is what bottled contention may smell like. I also had this other idea for a perfume called Wax of Shame. Wax of Shame is a phrase from my song, Lonely Song, which I think played earlier in this video. But it's supposed to be a gourmand scent with a very warm and woody base. On the top, it's theoretically gonna have iso-e super, burnt sugar. In the mid, it's supposed to have white lily, milk, cherry, hawthorn, and palm leaf. And in the base, I wanted dust, dark chocolate, dreamwood, and candle wax. So, an experimental type of smell for sure. I feel like the wax, the dust, and the palm leaf, and the florals would come together to smell kind of like an old Yankee candle collecting dust. And then milk blends in with hawthorn because of their sweetness. Chocolate, cherry, and sugar blend together because, again, gourmand notes. And also, I forgot to mention for arsenic, if I were to produce a oil format, the base would be apple seed oil for sure. This right here is sweet almond oil, but if I were to make it my own thing, I would definitely do that. Ooh, I just got a whiff of this. I was like, I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, damn, that's good. I kind of ate it. Another perfume idea I had is, again, based on a lyric I have. It's gonna be called Game of Hate, which is from my song I Can't See You Anymore, which is a very heavy song about lots of anxiety. This is the blurb I wrote for that. Game of Hate strikes you with a sick, sour odor laced with herbs and a bitter, failed recovery effort. You want only to escape. You find a better place. Powdery clouds, the shells she wears on her wrists and neck. And the scent fades. As the scent fades, you're left only with a melancholy musk, as if you were never even here. Who, really, were you fighting in the first place, and why? A very light scent, but a painful one. It's gonna have aspirin and neroli and chrysanthemum in the top. Aspirin is sort of like a sour smell, I would know. Mid is gonna have iris, seashells, and CO2 extract. And in the base, it's just gonna be musk. So that's an idea. Another idea I had was Mockingbird, which is just a song I have called Mockingbird. And the perfume is based on that song, just as a whole. The bottle is gonna be like Montel, where it has that like little lock thing, I think, or kind of like a grenade. I think that was cool as fuck. People say they don't like that about Montel bottles. I actually love that. Like, I want to buy Choco Musk, not even because of the smell, like just because it's a cool ass looking bottle. And like a dull indigo color. And my idea was that it's not going to display any words or the name of the perfume or anything on the bottle. It's going to be very plain, which sort of ties into the theme of Mockingbird itself, the song of like, you know, not wanting to be yourself, like denying anything about yourself, just like being a blank slate, like denying everything, just treating yourself like you're nothing. Marine notes, nail polish, and moonflower in the top, lily of the valley and violet in the mid, and musk in the base. The nail polish I also wanted to smell sort of like it was for kids, like it was artificially scented, like some sort of fruity smell or floral smell. Another song name idea for perfume I had was based on my song Heart Wrench. I wrote in my notes, make it smell cold, metallic, almost bloody, like tears, bodily but also mechanical, because that's sort of a theme of the song. Humanity versus machinery. Emotions versus reason sort of theme. Make it burn your nostrils. Bottle is a heart covered in nails. Hurts you to spray it, as if it's punishing you. Salt, red peony, blood, fire in the top. Hot iron, frankincense, amber, and caramel in the mid. And molasses, cedarwood, smoke, and clove in the base. And that's all I kind of like developed so far with my perfume ideas. That's kind of all I wanted to talk about. I'm really happy with how this came out. I was so scared it was gonna smell bad. Like, I made a mistake with some of the notes. Like, they wouldn't smell good together, but the perfumer bared with me and made it smell really good. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed me yapping about literally something that has that is not of your concern at all. Like, something that you should not be caring about unless, like, you're obsessed with me. Which, hey, I'm really annoying. I feel annoying right now. I feel like nobody likes me. So on that note, I'm gonna I'm gonna ask you to keep being you and stay proud of yourself. Bye.